Sorry, this week's movie has me worried about being a reviewer. Assassins might be hiding in the walls, or in the ceiling, or in the popcorn machine. Ah! Oh, Killer Pineapple, I'm so glad I can trust you. What? Ah! This is 1973's Theater of Blood. After a wide selection of silent movie Bard action, we're introduced to Maxwell, a posh theater critic who is called in to deal with squatters. Instead of running in fear from his scary umbrella, the squatters chase down and stab him exactly 23 times. There's a quick line quoted from Julius Caesar, but I'm thinking the significance might have been lost on him. The police arrive to find the body of Maxwell, a bottle of purple booze, and an old poster of the renowned but infamous Shakespearean actor Edward Lionheart, who passed away a few years previous. Elsewhere, the very same Lionheart shows us that you don't have to be upper crust to enjoy the bard's work, but bribes, punches, and booze certainly help. The Critics' Circle, of which George Maxwell was a member, is introduced to us in black and white, and then in color, where the first response to the unfortunate death of their colleague is,
"At last a headline, instead of a byline."
Later, Horace Snipe is drawn to a mysterious theater to interview the supposedly deceased Lionheart. Snipe's praise of the theater and Lionheart quickly dies as he's called out on the wide range of cheeky but negative reviews he's posted over the years. Taking a page from Troilus and Cressida, Lionheart's words stab like a spear, and Snipe goes to horse around at Maxwell's funeral. With 2 Critics' Circle members already dead, Mary Dew asks a good question.
Darling boy, they're not going to start killing people for writing bad notices, are they?
And to that I say, have you ever seen social media comment sections? Elsewhere at the cemetery, Edwina Lionheart visits her father's monument and is confronted about the death by Critics' Circle president Peregrine Devlin. She replies to him with titles that would look good in a critic bio.
Wielder of the brutal aphorism, master of the killing phrase.
Later that night, a fancy chest appears at the Sprout residence. After dark, the trunk opens to reveal Lionheart and his mysterious second-in-command. They perform major surgery on Sprout as his wife sleep nags.
Hurry! I'm winning more time.
And the music that accompanies the whole gory affair is absolutely perfect. Mid-surgery, Lionheart gives us an "it's hard to find good help" look before sawing off Sprout's head. The well-known critic wakes up dead, but nevertheless proceeds to make the rounds, calling on Devlin quite early. Over at a posh cafe, you can definitely leave it to a critic named Dickman to chat up a young actress looking for advice. She persuades him to critique her troupe by joining them for a read-through. Things go okay until Lionheart makes himself known and reveals Dickman doesn't really have the heart for the Merchant of Venice. After 4 murders, it's established that every kill was based on a Shakespearean death, specifically in the order of the last theater season of the currently deceased Edward Lionheart. Devlin reveals how Lionheart believed he was snubbed for the Critics' Circle's Best Actor of the Year award 2 years previous, which led him to reciting to be or not to be, right into the Thames. Whoever is committing these murders had in-depth knowledge of the snub and Lionheart's death. Guards are posted on the remaining critics to protect them from being harmed, but it doesn't quite go as planned. Oliver Larding attends a fancy wine tasting and ends up being nailed inside of a barrel of Chambertin 64 by Lionheart reciting Richard III, and Devlin comes face to fencing mask with the man himself. After a swashbuckling fight based on Romeo and Juliet, Lionheart reminds Devlin he could take him out at any time. In return, Devlin is quite blasé in his reply.
Just so long as you don't make me have to listen to that demented rubbish of yours.
To quote something Shakespeare might have said at some point, "Yon critic hath bollocks of iron!" Back on the killing train, Sultry catches his bombshell wife with a Scottish masseuse and strangles her, thus fulfilling a major moment in Othello. As Lionheart in disguise reports the crime to the police on guard, it's kinda weird how incredibly chill they are.
Oh, thank you, sir.
With only 3 critics remaining, Devlin proves to be a critic of more than just plays with a cheeky but quite biting critique.
Surely the entire might of the London police force can prevent us from being killed.
Miss Moon meets up with a celebrity stylist.
Hello. I'm Butch.
And the whole experience leaves her quite shocked, just like Joan of Arc in Henry VI, Part 1. Mary Dew arrives home to search for
My doggy woggies!
but all he finds is a camera and a giant pie, which both has a twin and is filled with his precious poodles because
We knew that Monsieur would be hungry.
Lionheart isn't only a great chef, but a clever punster.
He didn't have the stomach for it.
Devlin is finally caught and tossed into a complex device meant to blind him if he doesn't acknowledge Lionheart as the proper Critics' Circle winner.
Never, 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 never.
Despite Devlin's clear response, the award is presented and the after party gets a little wild. Cops arrive to find the theater is totally lit, leading Lionheart to go out in a tragic way Shakespeare would have been proud of. Of the performance, Devlin says,
But of course he was madly overacting as usual. But you must admit he did know how to make an exit.
Okay, first off, I get the sense Shakespeare would have been really good at modern horror. Anyway, 1973's Theatre of Blood is a British horror comedy. Robert Furst, the director of the abominable Dr. Phibes, was originally offered the chance to direct, but turned it down because he didn't want to be known as just the director of the Vincent Price themed killing movies. The film was reportedly a favorite of Price, who wanted to sink his teeth into a Shakespearean role. Price also found love on set as Diana Rigg, who played Lionheart's daughter, introduced him to his future wife, who played Miss Moon. The film was originally to be titled Much Ado About Murder, and in some ways I think it would have been a more appropriate title considering the Shakespearean influence. At the time, it did $1 million at the box office and received excellent reviews, being called possibly the best horror film Vincent Price ever made. Theatre of Blood was shot completely on location, including the historic Putney Hippodrome, which had been boarded up since the 1950s before being scouted for Lionheart's theater hideout. Filmmakers rented it out for $127 a week and were allowed to set fire to parts of it for the film's climactic ending. It was demolished in 1975 to make room for housing. Lionheart's tomb was an actual monument in Kinsale Green Cemetery. It originally featured a seated man holding a Bible with a woman sitting at his feet. The faces were altered using plastic masks of Price and Rigg, while the Bible was covered with a volume of Shakespeare. There was a short-lived stage adaptation in 2005 which featured Jim Broadbent and Diana Riggs' daughter Rachel Sterling in the lead roles. Theatre of Blood is both a high mark and an expected norm of Vincent Price's horror career. The man brought a unique energy to his roles that has yet to be replicated. For my money, Theatre of Blood and Dr. Phibes sit as his best pieces. It took me a couple of viewings to really appreciate how good this was. It takes what Phibes did and sharpened it, while doing a lot of its own thing in what is possibly the most British way possible. The parallels to Phibes are significant. A revenge-driven man back from the dead who also happens to be quite eccentric, a large collection of creative murders based on a work of literature, and a very, very cheeky police force. The deaths in Phibes feel more visceral, but the kills in Theatre of Blood are more sophisticated overall. In terms of story, it speeds along and doesn't feel its hour 40 runtime. For being a relatively morbid tale, it also manages to have a lot of little great moments of humor. One of my favorites, which is also apparently a goof, was the appearance of Sprout's severed head, both found in his bed and on top of Devlin's milk delivery. It also has quite a message about the nature of criticism. For all of the over-the-top deaths and Lionheart's obvious ego, there are passages that feel like a frustrated actor's response to one too many bad reviews. And anyone that does anything involving a comment section can certainly relate to having that one commenter that grinds their gears. Even in the last moments of this movie, Devlin, who himself just escaped a terrible fate, cheekily critiques Lionheart and his performance. If it's not clear, I really enjoy this movie. The plot isn't rock solid if you really try to analyze it, but it's loads of fun with creative kills, a great cast, and Vincent Price at his absolute best. It's a relatively available release both on Blu-ray and streaming, so definitely don't miss out. So what do you think? Suggestions for movies, trivial questions, comments, ratings, and a Critics' Circle award I clearly deserve would be appreciated. Thank you so very much for watching.